Question: what makes a memorable BBEG? Creating a memorable big bad evil guy can be a difficult task, especially if you're a new dungeon master or storyteller. But over time, you can learn to overcome this and tell great stories with great characters, including the evil ones. If I look back into my own memory, I can remember that my characters were also too much of a cliche. The bad guys would be always just there for the players to show up and ruin their plans, whatever they could have been. As a result, they would become too cheesy. They would be too much of a cartoonish character, just like a cardboard box that are highlighted here and there to play as of an evil guy, but they were not at all living to that expectation. And the reason behind this is most importantly that these characters did not have any motives. They were there, they had goals, but they did not had any rationale behind why would they do any of the things that they were doing. Why would they be there? Why would they act the way that they act? And the reason is they did not have that motive, they lacked it. Once you set up the goals and the motives behind them, you can actually be quite smart and deconstruct the story from there. So you can create plot points where these motives are presented or explained or actually seen in action. And this is the first point where your BBG comes back to life. They are actually there with some form of a logic, some form of a thought process behind their actions. Second point, just like your real players, just like your player characters that live through a story, they start from somewhere, they level up, they gain experience, they live into different story moments. And through those moments, they learn new spells, they gain new levels and gain new tools and be able to change in a source because they live through all of these experiences. Same thing needs to happen for your evil guy. They need to also have an arc. They need to also be lived in. They need to also be human and have a story for them to show how they are. And this is a little bit more difficult because we're obviously following the story of our players. We would follow the PCs as they go through their journey of becoming whoever they are, becoming and telling their story. However, we don't see the BBG the whole time. There is a way to reach out to those. The first one, which is the obvious one, is that obviously, so imagine this is our players as they're playing. We would meet with our evil guy as we go through a story through certain points. There are points where the stories align, and there are these certain encounters. This makes it much better when you have a story where you have a recurring evil guy that happens once, and then we see the snapshot of their reactions. We see a snapshot of them living through their life through the story. This makes it much more human and makes it much more lived in. And as a result, we can attribute a personality to them. It's because we get to know them, we get to see how they are when they're calm, how they are when they're failing, how they are when they're actually achieving their goals. And this becomes an interpretation of a personality where these characters, these evil characters, become more than just their name, more than just of what we have learned about them. And another point, another way that you can reach out to this would be instead of directly encountering with them, you can make it a bit more creative. You can see the outcome of what they have done because maybe they have already moved on, maybe they have already did what they would have been doing. Example of this would be if you are facing an evil guy who is planning to destroy the entire kingdom. You would not necessarily meet up with them until the really end, but you would meet their delegation, their people who would be their followers, the people who have positively been influenced by them, but people who would be negatively influenced by them. And maybe a city that has been destroyed on their way. So you would see the consequences of the actions that they have done. Which leads me to my last point, which is the stakes. The thing is, a lot of times in the stories, the evil guy has plans. They always talk about it. They always show their plan. They're always plotting, but they never, in a meaningful way, change the course of the story, or they do not really act upon the plans that they have. And that might be all right for many stories, but it would make it way more strong when they raise stakes, when they create real consequences that really change. Sometimes that could be a little bit dramatic with some characters being gone or some parts of their plan becoming the reality, so they win in some sort of, like, if it was like a major conflict amongst two nations, let's say there was a nation A and nation B, and there was like a story of an evil guy in this nation against our heroes on this side, and if they had won a major blow to the forces on our hero's side, that could have been a consequence, or it could be that they have managed to create parts of their final plan and they're just right about to complete it, and even maybe to get it even further, maybe they completely succeed, and now the stakes are even raised to the maximum, right? So combining all three, having a motive and goals behind the actions, having a personality that is lived in, and raising the stakes and having consequences can create an evil guy that is memorable and talked over the table and hopefully remembered for the years to come. That was all I had for this video. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Peace.